Not all heroes wear uniforms. Some just limp toward the light, bleeding and still carrying others in their mouths. The wind shrieked like a warning through the alleys of Bozeman, Montana, on a night so bitter it could freeze the heart. February's fury had turned the mountain town into an icy graveyard of forgotten sidewalks and shuttered windows. Most people were safe, huddled indoors, unaware that a small miracle was already unfolding in the shadows. A large, wounded German shepherd emerged from the whiteout, his coat caked with frost, his paws cracked and bleeding. But his golden-brown eyes were fixed on the glow of a kitchen light inside a roadside diner. Tessa's Diner, a local favorite. Clutched gently between his jaws was a shivering puppy, and in his chest, beneath the matted fur and bleeding gash from a piece of rusted wire, beat the heart of a warrior. This was Valor, though no one knew his name yet. Not the young woman wiping down tables in the diner. Not the grizzled cook scrubbing his station. And certainly not the world that had forgotten what loyalty looks like on four legs. But that night, the shepherd was about to remind them. Welcome to the Heart Force channel, where you and I find more meaning in life through dog stories. Before we continue, please comment below and let us know where you are listening to this video. And if you have any dog stories of your own, feel free to share them with everyone. The pup was the second one he'd pulled from the storm drain. The first, barely breathing, had been laid gently on an old flannel jacket Valor dragged across the pavement. His own side was torn from where the concrete had collapsed, slamming him into jagged rebar. But the dog didn't whimper. He didn't cry. He moved with a mission. Inside the diner, Sam Delaney, a 58-year-old veteran turned short-order cook, glanced up from his grill. "What the hell?" he muttered, spotting the form outside the kitchen window. "Something wrong?" asked Emily Sanders, the 30-something server who'd moved to Bozeman after her divorce, still trying to outrun the shadows of her past. Sam pressed his face to the glass. The German shepherd was sitting perfectly still outside the back door, his body shielding the two pups now curled into a shared shiver under his belly. Blood darkened the snow beneath him. "Jesus, he's hurt. And he's protecting those little ones," Sam said. Emily grabbed her coat without thinking. "We have to help him." "No, wait," Sam warned. "You don't just approach a dog like that. He could be wild, desperate." But the shepherd wasn't snarling. He wasn't barking. He simply looked up at them with eyes that said, "Please." Emily opened the door slowly, crouching to the shepherd's level. "Hey there, big guy, you okay?" Valor didn't move. He only wagged his tail once before gently nudging one of the puppies forward. His eyes never left Emily's. It was a surrender and a request. Sam knelt beside her. "Look at that," he whispered. "He's not just bringing them in, he's choosing to trust us." They carried the pups inside, wrapping them in clean towels. Sam set a bowl of roast beef scraps on the floor. Valor sniffed it, but didn't eat. Instead, he nosed the food toward the puppies first. Emily had tears in her eyes. He's feeding them first, even though he's starving. That night, they named him Valor because courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it limps in from the cold, bleeding quietly, but refusing to give up. By morning, the story was already spreading across Bozeman. Locals who'd never cared for strays were calling in with offers to help. Sam reached out to Darla Wren, the town's best veterinarian. When she arrived, she gasped at the state of Valor's injuries. "He should be dead," she murmured. "This dog has lost more blood than I believe possible." But he didn't stop. Not until those pups were safe. They asked her how old he might be. She examined his teeth and paws. "Maybe 6 or 7, she said. But with that look in his eyes, he's older than that. Seen more than any creature should." She stitched his side and prescribed rest. But Valor had no interest in staying put. Every few hours, he'd rise, even through the pain, to check on the pups. He'd nose their blankets, lick their noses, and make sure they were still breathing. "Like a soldier still guarding his post," Sam said. "Or a father," Emily replied. That night, as Valor dozed under a heat lamp and the pups snored softly beside him, Emily stood at the window watching the snow. Her breath fogged the glass, her fingers clutching the ceramic mug Sam had handed her. You ever feel like you're being called to something bigger? She asked quietly. Sam didn't look at her. I used to. Then I stopped listening. But Valor had listened. He'd answered a call none of them had heard. And in doing so, he'd saved more than just the pups. He was about to save a town and a woman who didn't know they needed saving. Sometimes, it's not the storm outside that breaks you. It's the silence inside when you think no one sees your worth anymore. Emily Sanders had been broken before. She didn't talk about it. Not the bruises, not the shouting. Not the nights she curled up in her bathroom with a rescue, mutt just to feel safe. That was Baton Rouge, and she'd left it all behind 5 years ago. At least, that's what she told herself. But now, standing in the dim light of Tessa's diner, watching Valor rest in a crate lined with towels, she felt something cracking inside. Not from fear this time, from recognition. This dog knew pain. He wore it the way soldiers wear scars, without complaint, without apology. And something in that silent dignity pulled her in like a lighthouse through fog. Valor wasn't healing as quickly as expected. Darla, the vet, visited every day, bringing antibiotics and checking the pups, who Emily had named Hope and Whiskey. Girl and a boy. Sam asked, eyebrow raised. Emily shrugged. Hope's what we need. Whiskey's what gets us through when Hope doesn't show up. Sam grunted. Sounds like a country song. It was Emily's idea to let Valor walk with her on her morning shifts. He needs to move, she told Sam, though she didn't say she needed it too. That quiet companionship, the sound of his paws beside hers on the frosty sidewalk, did something to her heart she wasn't ready to name. People started noticing. An old woman sitting on the stoop outside, Midnight Joe's pawn, called out one morning, "That dog saved those pups, didn't he?" Emily nodded. "He looks like he's seen war," the woman whispered. "Maybe he has," Emily said. The town warmed to Valor quickly. Donations of kibble and puppy formula arrived by the bag. Sam installed a small fenced area behind the diner so the dogs could stretch their legs. A chalkboard near the register kept a running tally. Valor's Recovery Fund, $1,327 and a box of squeaky toys. But not everyone was happy. One night, a white SUV idled behind the dumpster. Sam, locking up, noticed the glow of a cigarette inside. "You lost?" he asked, tapping on the window. The man rolled it down. Expensive jacket. Sunglasses at night. Southern drawl like oil on water. "Just admiring the new mascot," the man said, nodding toward the back of the diner, where Valor's kennel glowed softly in the window. "He's not for sale." "Oh, I know," the man said. "But not everything's about money, friend. Sometimes it's about control." Sam's fist tightened. "You've got 5 seconds." The man smiled. "Tell your girl to stop asking questions about where that dog came from." He pulled away, tires crunching snow, leaving behind a whiff of cologne and unease. Emily hadn't told Sam she'd posted Valor's picture to a few online forums about lost German Shepherds. She hadn't mentioned the email she got from a woman in Spokane who said the dog looked like her late husband's retired canine, stolen from her property during a suspicious break-in. He was called Bullet, but he always answered to Valor when my husband used to talk to him, the email read. "If that's him, please let me know. And be careful. They don't want him found." Emily hadn't replied. Not yet. On a particularly cold night, Emily woke from a nightmare. Bâton rouge. Screaming. Her ex's fist through drywall. She stumbled to the back of the diner in her slippers, needing to check on Valor. He was awake, sitting silently, watching her. She sank down beside the crate and whispered, "You ever think you were just born to be broken?" Valor shifted forward, pressing his head into her lap. She cried until her throat hurt. 2 days later, Sam came in late from a grocery run. Emily noticed his hands were shaking. "What is it?" "Dog tags," he said, pulling a bent set from his coat pocket. "Found him in the alley behind the diner. Name scratched off. But look." He handed her the second tag. On it, engraved in tiny block letters. K9 Valor. Bozeman PD, retired. Emily stared at it. Someone tossed it behind the dumpster. Like they didn't want us to know. Darla confirmed it. The faint tattoo behind Valor's left ear matched the department's retired K9 registry. He'd been discharged after a shoulder injury, expected to be adopted by his handler. But the handler died in a traffic accident 6 months ago. His widow had filed a missing pet report. Then her house was mysteriously broken into. Valor was gone. They took him, Emily whispered. Someone wanted him gone. Sam folded his arms. You thinking what I'm thinking? Emily nodded. This dog didn't just rescue puppies. He escaped something, and someone wants him back. The next night, the SUV returned. But this time, they weren't just watching. They were waiting. The thing about loyalty is, if you try to buy it, you'll never understand it. It was just after midnight when the power went out. A storm hadn't been forecasted, but the wind outside sounded like a warning. The kitchen lights at Tessa's diner blinked once, then died, leaving only the soft glow of the emergency exit sign near the back door. Emily sat upright on the cot she'd started keeping in the staff room, her heart pounding. Valor was already awake. She could hear his low growl through the door, quiet, steady, a sound more warning than threat. Protective. Sam burst in, holding a flashlight and his old service pistol. Generator's not responding. You smell that? Emily sniffed. Burnt copper, faint smoke. Someone cut the line. They hurried to the back, where Valor was already on his feet, standing like a soldier between the door and the pup's kennel. The low, rumbling growl never stopped. Then came a knock. 3 sharp taps. Not friendly. Sam stepped forward, gun raised. Back off. From outside, the same slick voice as before drifted through the door. I told you not to ask questions. That dog doesn't belong to you. You're sheltering stolen property. He's not property. Emily snapped. He's family. No answer. Just footsteps retreating. Then tires squealing. Then silence. The cops came an hour later. They were polite, but not hopeful. No cameras. No license plate. No fingerprints. They're pros, the officer said, and they want the dog. But Valor wasn't shaken. As the sun rose, he licked Hope and whiskey clean, then sat near the window with the quiet authority of a guardian watching over his post. Emily sat beside him. Why you, she asked. What do they want with you so bad? She hadn't sent the email. Not yet. Not to the woman in Spokane. But now she couldn't stop thinking about it. At noon, Darla showed up with a man in uniform. This is Detective Graham from Missoula PD, she said. He came to ask about the shepherd. Graham nodded at Valor. That him? Emily crossed her arms. Depends on why you're asking. Graham knelt, not reaching out, just watching. K9 Valor was one of the best. Worked search and rescue, bomb detection, missing persons. He pulled 5 people out of a fire in Missoula. Saved his handler during a hostage standoff. Sam nodded. Sounds like our guy. Graham stood. When Officer Landon died, his wife said she'd keep the dog. But within a week, everything went sideways. Her small catering business was suddenly under investigation. A week after that, a break-in. No dog. No leads. Emily clenched her fists. She said she suspected someone wanted the dog gone. She was right, Graham said. Officer Landon had started looking into a restaurant developer, Maxwell Royce, owner of Royce Culinary Holdings. A man with a habit of taking over family-run restaurants when they're vulnerable. Emily's stomach turned. Maxwell Royce. She turned to Sam. That's the name on the paperwork the guy in the SUV showed me. He owns half the strip on Pine Street. Graham nodded. He plays it clean. But Landon suspected the fire at one restaurant wasn't an accident. Then Landon died in a wreck the next day. Emily whispered, and the only witness who might know what really happened was the dog. Back at the diner, Emily finally replied to the Spokane email. His name is Valor, and he's safe, but someone's looking for him. Can you help? The woman's reply came within an hour. My name is Allison Landon. Valor saved my husband's life more times than I can count, and I believe he's trying to save someone else's now. If you let me come, I'll tell you everything. But be careful. They're watching. That night, Valor paced near the door again. Not growling this time, just restless. Emily opened the back door, and he walked outside, tail stiff. Hope and Whiskey followed, yipping softly. Sam said he's on to something. The sky was bruised with dusk when Valor took off down the alley. Emily didn't hesitate. She grabbed her coat and flashlight. Should we follow? Sam asked. We have to, she said. And they did. They followed him down back alleys and side streets, past flickering streetlights and closed stores. until they reached an abandoned warehouse near the train station. Valor stopped. His ears flicked. Then he barked sharp, twice, before charging toward the door. Emily and Sam ran after him, not knowing what they'd find. Inside, in the shadows, Valor froze. A shape moved in the dark. A man, bloodied, weak, tied to a chair. He looked up as Emily approached. "My name's Travis McLean," he gasped. "I used to run Travis's smokehouse. Royce took everything, but I found proof. They took me before I could show anyone. But—" His eyes locked on Valor. "He came back for me. I knew he would." Emily fell to her knees. "He followed Valor here," Sam whispered. "He wasn't pacing. He was leading." Back at the diner, Travis lay recovering, guarded by Valor and his pups. Emily held a flash drive Travis had passed her before blacking out. "Everything's on here," he'd whispered. "Financial records, payoffs, real estate schemes. Royce burned my place. Same guy who came for you." Sam poured them both a drink. "We have enough now." Emily looked at Valor. "You ready to go to war again, soldier?" The shepherd didn't move. He didn't need to. When a system fails to listen, it's the voices of the forgotten, human and canine, that rise the loudest. The storm outside wasn't snow this time. It was truth, and it was coming fast. Emily stared at the flash drive in her hand like it was a live wire. Inside that small piece of plastic was everything. Forged signatures, insurance fraud, bribed inspectors, false inspection reports. Roy's Culinary Holdings wasn't just acquiring restaurants. It was orchestrating their downfall. And now, thanks to a bleeding man and a brave shepherd, the evidence was finally out. "We take this public," Sam said, arms crossed. "Tonight." Emily looked at him. "We'll get sued. Let him try. We got a town. And a dog. And a damn good reason." Word spread like wildfire through Bozeman. By morning, Channel 4 News had the story. By noon, it was trending nationwide. Retired K9 helps uncover restaurant crime ring. Photos of Valor, tail raised, pups flanking him like furry lieutenants, hit social media like a tidal wave. Donations flooded in. Letters, messages, even art from school children. But it was Allison Landon's arrival that turned attention into outrage. She walked into Tessa's diner wearing a long wool coat, her face pale but determined. In her hand, she held a folder. "This is my husband's file," she told Detective Graham. "Everything he collected before his car accident." Emily hugged her before she could finish speaking. "Thank you," Allison whispered, "for taking care of him." Valor rose to his feet and walked to her slowly, tail swaying low. He pressed his head against her hip, and she knelt beside him, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You never stop protecting people," she whispered into his fur. Sam wiped his eyes discreetly with a napkin. "Someone cut your husband's brakes. We're going to prove it." The town rallied harder than Emily had ever seen. Restaurant owners long silenced by fear stepped forward. Some had been threatened. Others had their reputations ruined. But now they had a leader, even if he walked on four legs. A community board was quickly formed. They called themselves Valor's Pact. They held a press conference on the steps of City Hall. Sam spoke first, in a suit so stiff it looked like it hurt. "I've seen war. I've seen betrayal. But I've never seen bravery like this dog showed. Not just once, but every damn day." Next was Allison. "They took my husband, tried to erase him, and they would have gotten away with it, if not for Valor." Then Emily took the mic. "You want to see loyalty? Look into that dog's eyes. He didn't need a badge or a leash or a command. He made a choice. He came back for the helpless, and he led us to the truth." Behind her, Hope barked once, as if punctuating the speech. Whiskey peed on the lawn. The crowd laughed and cheered anyway. But Royce wasn't going down without a fight. His lawyers filed a cease and desist order, claiming defamation, trespassing, and theft of proprietary data. Emily stared at the papers. "He's suing the dog?" "Technically," Sam said, "he's suing everyone but the dog." Allison looked at the document and laughed bitterly. "That's what cowards do when truth scares them." Graham shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Between the flash drive, your husband's folder, and the witness statements, Royce is finished. We just need one more thing." Sam raised an eyebrow. "What?" "A testimony from someone who worked inside his company. Someone he hasn't threatened into silence yet. They didn't have to wait long. A man named Clay Jensen, a junior accountant, walked into the diner 2 days later. Nervous, sweating, shaking. "I'm done lying," he said. "I kept quiet because I have a daughter. But I saw what he did to Valor. I saw what he did to Allison's husband. And if a dog's brave enough to take a hit for someone else, I can be too." He handed over a binder. Bank records, transaction logs, internal emails. Sam wieselt. "It's over." "No," Emily said. "Now it begins." The next morning, federal agents raided Royce's corporate offices. He was arrested while boarding his private jet in Billings. Charges: racketeering, insurance fraud, obstruction of justice, attempted murder. The headlines wrote themselves. Dog of Valor brings down culinary crime king. Hero shepherd saves town from fraud empire. Justice's 4 legs and 2 puppies. But for Emily, Sam, and Allison, it wasn't about headlines. It was about healing. The diner expanded its mission. Tessa's Diner became Valor House, a restaurant and nonprofit culinary school for survivors. Veterans, single moms, former inmates, people who had every reason to give up but didn't. Valor became their symbol. Hope and Whiskey became certified therapy dogs. And Emily? She found her voice again. One crisp evening, as a fire crackled in the pit outside the restaurant, Emily sat beside Sam and Allison. Valor lay stretched out. Hope and Whiskey curled beside him. "You think he knows?" Emily asked quietly. Sam nodded. "He knows." Allison smiled. He never needed anyone to give him a command. He already had a mission. Valor lifted his head at that moment, ears twitching at the sound of distant laughter from the community dinner happening just inside. Then he laid his head back down, content. Heroes don't always return to glory. Sometimes they stay behind to make sure the broken remember how to stand. It had been a year since Valor limped out of the snowstorm with 2 shivering pups cradled in his jaw and a wound that should have stopped any ordinary animal. But Valor was never ordinary. Bozeman, once just a quiet speck on Montana's rugged map, had become something else entirely. Valor House wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a revolution wrapped in warmth, plated with grace. It was a place where people with nowhere left to turn found new beginnings. The walls inside bore stories now. Photographs of alumni from the culinary program, clippings of front-page headlines, framed letters from veterans and survivors who'd eaten their first warm meal there after years of hunger. At the center of every photograph, every memory, was the dog who'd asked for nothing and given everything. Valor. But even legends grow old. It began slowly. Shorter walks, less appetite, moments when Valor stared at the wall just a little too long. Dr. Darla confirmed what everyone feared. "His heart's strong," she said gently, "but his time is getting short." No one said it aloud, but they all felt it, that pressure in the chest that comes when you know you're living inside a goodbye. Emily sat with him more often now, her hand always resting on his back. Hope and Whiskey, now grown, never strayed more than a few feet from him. When he moved, they moved. When he slept, they curled around him like shadows made of loyalty. One night, Emily found a box on her porch. Inside was a single leather collar. Notad, just one word etched into the inside lining. Worthy. There was no note, just a sense of something finishing. They planned a ceremony, not a funeral, not yet, just a celebration. A living tribute to the dog who had changed them all. It was held on the lawn outside Valor House. Tables were lined with dishes from the graduates of their culinary school. Lanterns hung from tree branches, glowing gold in the twilight. Children painted paw prints on wooden hearts. A local musician played soft folk tunes. Sam wore his old military uniform, shoulders straighter than they'd been in years. Emily read aloud Valor's story, her voice steady until the last paragraph. When it broke just a little, Valor lay near the fire pit, his head on his paws, watching everything with those same steady, knowing eyes. When the crowd parted, he stood, slowly, carefully. He walked to the front of the yard, looked out at the faces, many of whom he'd never met, and barked once. Strong, sharp, as if to say, "Don't forget." The next morning, he didn't get up. Hope whined. Whiskey pawed at his shoulder. Emily came running. He was still warm, still breathing, but just barely. She lifted his head in her lap and whispered, "It's okay, soldier. You can rest." Valor passed beneath the sunrise, so soft it looked painted. Hope and Whiskey licked his ears until the very last breath. Emily stroked his fur until he was still. Then the silence came. Not empty, sacred. They buried him behind the diner under a big cottonwood tree. His collar hung from the branch above. Beneath it, a stone marker. Valor. He came for the forgotten. He stayed for the broken. He left us better than he found us. 1 year later, Hope and Whiskey are therapy dogs full-time. They visit schools and hospitals with a group called Valor's Legacy. Emily travels to speak at shelters and culinary institutes, sharing their story. Sam trains veterans in kitchen skills. Allison launched a nonprofit legal team that protects small restaurant owners from predatory takeovers. They've built something enduring. And sometimes, on the quiet days, when the wind moves just right and the chimes above the kitchen door ring without anyone near, Emily swears she hears it. A single bark, carried on the wind. A reminder that once a dog walked into a diner bleeding and changed everything. Valor's story isn't just about a heroic dog. It's about what happens when one act of loyalty sparks a chain reaction of healing. Through his pain, Valor showed us that strength isn't in how loudly we bark, but in who we choose to protect when we're hurt. We all carry wounds, but in community, in connection, we find our purpose again. Just like Valor carried those puppies, we can carry each other. Sometimes, the rescuers aren't the ones with capes. Sometimes, they're the ones limping in from the cold with hearts that never stopped loving. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. Have you ever known a dog like Valor? Share your own stories of resilience and hope. And don't forget to subscribe to the Heart Force channel, where every week we remind you that love always finds a way. You don't measure loyalty in words. You measure it in silence, in presence, in eyes that say everything when no one else knows what to say. The sirens came first, slicing through the calm dusk of Cedar Hills, Oregon. Red and blue lights flashed against the manicured lawns and porch columns of the Whitaker family's white colonial home. Then came the scream, one that made the neighbors stop breathing mid-sentence. Inside the upstairs bathroom, a German shepherd named Rex had his teeth locked, gently but with unrelenting force, on the hoodie collar of a boy slipping under bathwater. 14-year-old Caleb Whitaker's body hung limply, half submerged, his pale face tipped backward over the edge of the tub. One of Rex's paws was propped inside the basin for leverage, trembling as his body fought exhaustion. Caleb, his mother, Sarah, gasped as she appeared in the doorway, her hands going in her mouth. The scene looked like something from a nightmare, water overflowing onto the floor, crimson from where Rex had broken through the door, gashes across his front legs. But he wouldn't stop, not until help arrived. "Hold on, baby. Just hold on, Mark," she screamed. Her husband's feet thundered up the stairs, followed by the voice of their 10-year-old daughter, Ava, crying into the phone with a 911 dispatcher. And still, Rex did not let go. In that single moment, all the whispers from the neighborhood about the danger of big dogs meant nothing. Rex, the 90-pound rescue they'd adopted 9 months ago, was the only one keeping their son's head from sinking beneath the water. His tail wasn't wagging. His ears were flat. But his eyes never left Caleb's. Welcome to the Heart Force channel, where you and I find more meaning in life through dog stories. Before we continue, please comment below and let us know where you're listening to this video. And if you have any dog stories of your own, feel free to share them with everyone. 9 months earlier, the Whitakers didn't even want a dog. After a decade of health scares, Sarah and Mark Whitaker had built a world of control and predictability. Their son Caleb had been diagnosed with a rare congenital condition affecting his heart muscle. There were limits on everything. No intense exercise, no roughhousing, a restricted diet, even carefully controlled temperatures. They lived like their home was made of glass. When the family therapist first floated the idea of a pet to help Caleb socialize and feel less isolated, Mark laughed outright. "We don't have time for a goldfish," he said. "And certainly not a German shepherd. Too big, too risky, too unpredictable." He had childhood memories of one lunging at him through a fence. He never forgot the sound of the snarl. But Caleb didn't say much anymore, except that day when he looked up with wide, pleading eyes. "Just let me meet one." The compromise came on a cold, gray Saturday morning when Sarah offered to drive blankets and towels to the West Haven Animal Rescue. "In and out," she'd said. "We'll be home before lunch." But they weren't, because in kennel number 7, a pair of amber eyes changed everything. Rex didn't bark or whine when they approached. He simply stood, regal and still, tail sweeping slowly, watching Caleb like he'd been waiting for him his whole life. The boy stood frozen, then whispered, "Can I meet him?" The shelter volunteer hesitated. "He's a shepherd mix," she said carefully. "And he has a past." That past came with a file 2 inches thick, abandonment, suspected neglect, and behavioral notes no one liked to see. He was taken from a foreclosed property after neighbors heard howling for days. He'd broken through a window to escape. Shards of glass were still lodged in his right paw when he arrived. But he never showed aggression. Not once. In the meet-and-greet room, Rex approached Caleb with cautious grace. "No humping, no barking." He sat, waited, then slowly placed his chin on Caleb's knee. "He knows," Caleb whispered, running his fingers through the dog's thick fur. "He gets what it's like, feeling alone, but still, hoping someone sees you." Sarah blinked away tears. She'd never seen her son like this, so still, so connected. Mark hovered by the door. "He's massive," he muttered. He could knock Caleb over with a sneeze. But Rex didn't move. His gaze never left Caleb. And for the first time in years, the boy smiled. They brought Rex home under a foster-to-adopt agreement. Mark insisted it remain temporary. The whispers started immediately. "Those dogs are unpredictable. A German shepherd? With a heart kid?" The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Bradley, stopped inviting Ava to her granddaughter's birthday parties. Sarah's phone lit up with passive-aggressive messages about concerns. Even the pediatrician hesitated. "Just be cautious," she warned. "You never know how animals might react." But Rex wasn't just cautious, he was vigilant. Within days, he knew Caleb's routine. He'd sit quietly by the boy's side during remote classes, shadow him during walks, sleep beside his bed every night. When Caleb's heart monitor beeped, Rex would race to find Sarah before the humans even realized what was wrong. The change in Caleb was undeniable. He smiled more, laughed even. He started writing again, short stories about adventures in the mountains, ones he could never physically take. But that didn't matter. With Rex, the world felt less impossible. Then came that night, a quiet Wednesday. Caleb said he was going to take a bath. Sarah remembered how calm everything seemed, until it wasn't. They would later learn he had suffered a sudden arrhythmia, lost consciousness, slipped under the water. And Rex, sleeping outside the bathroom, knew the moment it happened, he began to bark. A deep, raw, unfamiliar sound that pulled Sarah from the back patio like a lifeline. He threw his body into the door again and again, claws digging, eyes wild. Not from panic, but from urgency. The frame cracked. He forced the door open just as Caleb disappeared beneath the surface. Caleb survived, barely, because a dangerous German shepherd had refused to let him drown. The EMTs would say they'd never seen anything like it. One called it divine intervention. Another simply knelt and patted Rex on the head. But the family knew the truth. It wasn't luck. It was love. Rex refused to leave Caleb's side in the hospital. Though the facility didn't allow dogs past the waiting area, exceptions were made when a heart specialist reviewed the home security footage, watched the shepherd burst through the bathroom door, pull Caleb above water, and wait like a soldier beside his body as Mark performed CPR. This wasn't a reaction, the doctor said. It was a decision. They placed Rex at the foot of Caleb's bed with a small blanket and strict orders. No jumping, no barking, no sudden movements. But Rex didn't need the rules. He simply curled beside the boy and stayed, alert, calm, breathing in sync with him. Machines hummed. Fluorescent lights buzzed. Nurses came and went. Rex didn't move. Not until Caleb opened his eyes. Mark, once so resistant, found himself standing in the hospital corridor with wet eyes and a hand resting on Rex's head. "I was wrong," he whispered. Sarah nodded. "About what?" "About dogs. About this one. About everything." News of the rescue spread quickly through Cedar Hills. What started as a quiet local story, a boy, his dog, a miraculous survival, soon caught fire. A reporter from the Oregonian requested an interview. A television crew showed up on their lawn. People began leaving cards, treats, letters, a framed print with the words, "Every hero doesn't wear a badge. Some wear fur." But with admiration came backlash. "You're glorifying a shepherd," one email read. "What happens when it bites next time?" Someone else dropped off a newspaper clipping about a past shepherd attack, highlighting the breed in yellow marker. A week later, the HOA president sent a formal letter requesting Rex wear a muzzle in public for community comfort. Comfort. It was the same word Sarah had heard when Caleb was denied a chance to play dodgeball in middle school. "We just want all the kids to feel comfortable," the principal had said. Translation: "Your son makes us nervous." Now, they were saying the same about Rex. Caleb was discharged under close observation. The cardiologist ordered more frequent monitoring, a stricter medication schedule, and emotional calm, less stress, more sleep. Rex, as usual, knew the drill. He followed Caleb like a silent tether, anticipating his movements before he made them. When Caleb's breath shortened, Rex nudged the emergency kit towards Sarah. When the boy dropped a book mid-sentence and stared off into space, Rex would rest his head on his lap, anchoring him back. Sarah started calling Rex the second heartbeat. But peace didn't last. At the next community HOA meeting, they brought it to a vote. Rex was officially listed as a potential threat. A clause in the bylaws cited property safety, breed behavior, and uncontrolled entry due to the bathroom door incident. They're saying breaking down a door to save our son shows violent tendencies? Mark asked, jaw clenched. "They're scared," Sarah replied, "but of the wrong thing." The neighborhood's concern wasn't new. It had just shifted form. Caleb had always been the heart kid, the one everyone was careful around. Now he was the boy with the German Shepherd, the kid with the scary dog. Then came the incident at the park. It was a warm Saturday morning, and Mark had driven the family to Riverbend Park for a rare outing. Caleb walked slowly beside Rex along the lake's edge while Sarah and Ava unpacked sandwiches under a shaded pavilion. Across the park, a boy screamed. People turned. A child, maybe 6, came running across the grass, tears pouring down his cheeks. Behind him, Rex. But he wasn't chasing. He was trotting behind, head low, ears back, nudging a baseball toward the boy who had accidentally thrown it too far. The child had fallen and scraped his knee. Rex had simply retrieved the ball and tried to return it. But no one saw that part. A woman, presumably the child's mother, snatched the boy into her arms and screamed, "Get that thing away from us." She pointed to Rex as if he were a bomb. Caleb froze. Mark called Rex back immediately, and the dog obeyed without hesitation. But someone had already pulled out a phone. The video went up within hours. German Shepherd lunges at child at Riverbend Park. No context. No audio. Just a shepherd in motion and a child crying. The next morning, the sheriff came by the house. "We have to follow up," he said apologetically. "We know your dog's history, but the footage, we have to look into it." Ava began to cry. Caleb didn't. He walked over to Rex, placed a hand on his neck, and stared the sheriff straight in the eye. "You can watch our security cam." Rex wasn't off leash. He wasn't lunging. He was helping. The officer looked at the boy, small for his age. A portable heart monitor still clipped under his t-shirt, and nodded. "I believe you." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat in the kitchen, nursing cold tea, watching Rex lying on the rug near the fridge. He opened one eye to check on her, then closed it again. "He'd die for Caleb," she whispered to Mark. Mark nodded. "It already almost did." Sarah blinked, eyes shimmering. "So why are they so afraid of him?" Mark took her hand. Because when someone's been fed fear their whole life, truth starts to look threatening. The next day, Ava stayed home from a birthday party. The mom had emailed saying they were keeping things small and shepherd-free. Caleb skipped a school event. His teacher said she couldn't guarantee that other parents would feel safe. It broke Sarah in half. She went to the garage, found a box labeled Piano Recital 2015, and pulled out the laminated medical alert badge Caleb wore when he was 7, the one that told the world he was fragile. A warning label, not a lifeline. She walked into the living room, sat next to Rex, and held the tag up to his collar. "You're not a threat," she whispered. "You're the strongest heart in this house." Rex licked her hand. The threats began as whispers, then turned into stones. A week after the park incident, someone left a typed letter in the Whitakers' mailbox. No return address. No signature. Just 4 words in bold. "Something will happen next." Sarah held the note with gloved hands, heart pounding. "This is a threat." Mark took a photo before calling the sheriff. But there wasn't much they could do. "Could be a prank," the deputy offered. "Still, we'll log it." That night, Sarah installed 2 more security cameras. Caleb didn't say a word, but he slept with his door open and Rex curled tight beside him, one hand resting on the dog's thick coat like a life preserver. The local newspaper finally ran a full profile. The shepherd hero or a danger waiting to strike. They listed the breed statistics, cherry-picked quotes, and vague mentions of neighborhood concern. There was no mention of Rex saving Caleb from drowning. No security footage. No expert input. Just the fear. It was Ava who noticed the pattern first. "All the people mad at Rex," she said one evening, fiddling with her macaroni, "are the same ones who never looked Caleb in the eye at block parties." Mark looked up. "What do you mean?" "They were always scared of him, too. Not because he did anything, but because they didn't know what to do with him." Sarah swallowed hard. "And now they don't know what to do with Rex." One person did, though. Mrs. Granger. The elderly widow 3 houses down, known for her prize-winning begonias and 3 cats, was the least likely ally. But one Tuesday morning, she appeared at the Whitakers' doorstep with a tray of warm blueberry muffins. "I just want to say thank you," she told Sarah. "That dog of yours? He stayed by Caleb's side at the hospital longer than most people would." Sarah blinked back surprise. "Thank you, Mrs. Granger. I saw the video," she said, eyes sharper than Sarah had ever noticed. "The one from the park. I saw what really happened. And I told Karen Green to her face that she should be ashamed." Sarah almost laughed. "What did she say?" "She stopped inviting me to her book club." Mrs. Granger smiled. "So I started my own." The whispers didn't stop. That weekend, someone slashed the tires of the family's SUV while it was parked at the community center. Caleb had been inside with Sarah for a heart check-in workshop. The police were called. Reports were filed. But nothing came of it. Mark replaced the tires himself that night, refusing help, his hands dirty with oil and rage. "They'll never say it," he muttered, "but they're hoping we'll move." Caleb sat quietly on the porch with Rex at his feet. "We're not going," the boy said. Rex didn't run. "I'm not going either." Mark looked up at his son, thinner, paler, but taller than he remembered. A quiet fire in his eyes. "No," Mark said. "We're staying." The next school board meeting was tense. Since the hospital incident, Rex had been allowed on campus as Caleb's registered support animal. But a petition had begun circulating, mostly from anonymous parents, urging the board to reconsider. Children shouldn't have to feel unsafe to accommodate one student's needs. The phrasing was careful, legal, devoid of emotion. Caleb sat at the back of the meeting, Rex at his feet, flanked by Sarah and Mark. Ava stayed home, too nervous to attend. A tall man stood to speak. Brad Langston, PTA co-chair, former college linebacker, widely respected in the neighborhood. "My daughter had a panic attack during PE," he said. "She told me it was because that dog was nearby." The audience murmured. The board took notes. Then Sarah stood. Her voice didn't tremble. "My son nearly died in our bathroom while I was sipping tea on the patio. I didn't hear a thing. Rex did. He broke through a locked door and pulled Caleb out of the water. He kept him alive until paramedics arrived." She looked at the board, then the crowd. "He's not dangerous. He's a lifeline. You may not understand that because you haven't had a fight every day for your child's next breath. But I have. So if you're asking us to choose between my son's ability to attend school safely and your daughter's unfounded fear of a dog she's never even approached. She paused. Her breath was steady. Then we'll find another school. But you'll have to explain that to your students, that a community punished a boy for being saved. Silence. Then someone clapped. Just one. Mrs. Granger. They didn't ban Rex. Instead, the school board proposed new support animal regulations, ones that included behavioral assessments and independent therapy dog evaluations. Rex passed every one. The therapist who evaluated him wrote, Rex demonstrates an unusually high level of medical intuition, calm responsiveness to stress, and social intelligence. His bond with the patient appears therapeutic in nature and is not replicable with other animals. The board didn't just permit him to stay. They asked Sarah to help draft broader support animal policy. Mark nearly dropped his coffee when he read the email. But progress was slow, bittersweet. Emily, Caleb's former best friend before his diagnosis, started saying hello again in the hallway. But her mom still wouldn't let her come over after school. Caleb's heart rate improved, but his trust in people did not. And Rex, though still his shadow, began to slow. The vet had warned them. The shoulder injury from breaking through the door had healed physically, but scar tissue would remain. Especially on cold mornings, Rex walked with a slight limp. But he never faltered beside Caleb. They walked in rhythm, quiet, measured steps. Not fast, but forward. That December, something changed. The HOA leadership shifted. Mrs. Granger, backed by a quiet army of parents and grandparents, was elected president. Karen Green lost by 12 votes. 2 weeks later, the muzzle mandate was repealed. Rex walked the neighborhood without it. People nodded. Some even smiled. Caleb noticed the change, but said nothing. Instead, he knelt beside Rex at the end of the block and whispered, You're changing them. Rex wagged his tail once. The first snowfall came early that year. Caleb had always loved the quiet of it, how the world softened, how the air held its breath. But that December, he noticed something else. Rex didn't run through it like he used to. Instead, he moved slowly across the yard, careful with his right shoulder. His breath puffed in the air like steam from a train that had been running too long. Is it hurting again? Caleb whispered, kneeling beside him. Rex leaned in and nuzzled his chest. The vet confirmed it. Scar tissue had tightened with the cold. While Rex was still strong, he'd need shorter walks, warmer bedding, and joint supplements. The pain wasn't constant, but it was there, always just under the surface. Caleb took it hard. He saved my life, and now he's paying for it, he told Sarah later that night, curled under a blanket with Rex pressed to his side. Rex would make the same choice 1,000 times, she said gently. That's what love looks like when it costs you something. That winter, the Whitaker home changed. It became a kind of safe haven, not just for Caleb and Rex, but for others. Mrs. Granger dropped by with casseroles and stories. A family with a rescue lab mix started attending board meetings and pushing for breed-neutral language in community policies. Even Emily visited once, sitting cross-legged on the floor while Rex dozed between them. He really doesn't care that I stopped talking to you, she said, scratching his ears. Caleb smiled faintly. He cares that you came back. But not everyone was happy with the changes. Karen Green, ousted from her HOA throne, started stirring up new fears. One evening, Sarah opened the community Facebook group to find a long post from Karen's alt account. Are we really going to ignore that a German Shepherd broke through a door? Imagine if that had been a child. We're being manipulated by a PR campaign built on guilt and sentimentality. The next victim might not survive. The comments exploded. Most were supportive, sharing links about therapy dogs, videos of Rex walking gently beside Caleb. But others weren't. They weaponized the kid's condition. It's just a matter of time. Mark wanted to reply. Sarah didn't let him. We don't fight in the mud, she said. We let Rex's actions speak for themselves. The new storm came unexpectedly. One Sunday afternoon, Caleb and Rex were walking by the creek trail when they heard it. A scream. Not child's. A woman's. They ran toward it. Caleb's heart monitor beeped softly with every step. By the water's edge, a jogger had fallen on the ice. Her ankle twisted awkwardly. She was sobbing, trying to crawl up the hill. Rex didn't wait for instruction. He padded down the slope slowly, approached from the side, and sat beside her. The woman flinched. "Please don't bite." Rex lay down, completely, head on his paws, tail gently thumping. The woman stared at him, then reached out. He licked her hand once. By the time Caleb reached them, the woman was no longer crying. "Your dog, he's amazing." Caleb smiled. "I know." The next morning, a letter arrived. Typed, signed, from the jogger, Melissa Rowan, paramedic. "Your dog kept me calm. My ankle was broken, but the real danger was the panic. I've seen patients go into shock from less. If he hadn't been there, well, I don't want to finish that sentence. I'm writing to the HOA and the school. That dog isn't just a support animal. He's an angel." The letter made its way to a local councilwoman. Within a month, new legislation began circulating through City Hall. The Companion Protection Clause, which aimed to provide expanded rights and legal protection to certified support animals, regardless of breed. Karen Green showed up at the council meeting, arguing again about Rex. "He's dangerous. I don't care what he hasn't done yet. We shouldn't need a body before we take action." Then Melissa Rowan stood, paramedic uniform, limping slightly, holding up a photo of Rex beside her on the ice. "This dog saved my life. Not once, twice. The first time I was a stranger. The second, I was a neighbor." The clause passed with overwhelming support. Rex's photo now hung in the City Hall's community wall under the caption, "Service without uniform. Hero without words." But for Caleb, the most powerful moment came quietly. At school, Brad Langston, once the loudest opponent, now subdued, approached him in the hallway. Rex stood beside Caleb, still and quiet. I used to be scared of dogs," Brad muttered. "Still am, kinda, but not yours. Yours is different." Caleb tilted his head. "Why?" Brad shrugged. "Because he looks at you like you matter." Caleb nodded. "He looks at everyone that way." Then came the blizzard. A record snowfall, icy winds, roads closed, power flickering. Caleb had been doing well, his heart rate stable, appetite better, even walking longer distances with Rex. But the storm hit something in his body like a switch. His color faded, his breathing thinned. The monitor beeped with a rhythm Sarah had hoped to never hear again. She rushed to his side, dialing 911 with one hand, checking his oxygen with the other. Mark began clearing the driveway in case the ambulance could get through. And Rex stayed at Caleb's side, pressing his chest gently into the boy's torso, offering body heat, comfort, time, because time was what they needed. Paramedics arrived 18 minutes later. They found Rex with his head resting over Caleb's chest like a shield. Again, and they understood. In a hospital, as monitors beeped and doctors murmured, the attending nurse asked, "Has this dog always been like this?" Mark replied without thinking, "He's always been what we needed. We just didn't always know it." Caleb stabilized after 3 days. Doctors adjusted his medication, told him he'd pushed too hard, too fast. But Rex? He didn't leave the hospital room once, not even to eat. Sarah had to hand feed him sandwiches and water from a cup. "I think he's starting to become part of Caleb," the nurse joked. Sarah smiled softly. "He already is." Spring arrived in Cedar Hills with a hush, not a fanfare. After the storm, the community quieted. The comments stopped. The whispers faded. And the Whitakers, they kept walking. Each day, Caleb and Rex took the same route. Up Oak Ridge Lane, past the cul-de-sac where the arguments used to happen, past the mailboxes where hate notes had once appeared. Now people waved. Some smiled. A few kids even crossed the street just to pet Rex. "Do you remember," Caleb asked one morning, "when people were afraid of you?" Rex didn't respond, of course. He simply leaned his weight into Caleb's legs. His way of saying, "I remember, but I don't carry it." It was during that spring that Caleb was invited to speak at the high school's Mental Health and Wellness Day. He was nervous. He'd never addressed a crowd. His palms sweated. His heart monitor clicked in faint rhythms under his shirt. But when it was time, he stepped up to the podium with Rex by his side. He looked over the crowd of teenagers, teachers, some parents, and said, "People used to think I was fragile. Then they thought Rex was dangerous. But none of those things were true. We were just misunderstood. He placed a hand on Rex's back. This dog didn't just save my life. He gave me a reason to live it. There was silence. The good kind. The kind that holds meaning. Then applause. And maybe even a few tears. Later that week, Sarah found Caleb in the backyard, resting on the grass with Rex lying beside him. He was scribbling in a small notebook, his writing journal. "What are you working on?" she asked. "A book," he replied. "What kind?" He looked down at Rex. "A story about a boy whose heart was broken, and the dog who kept it beating." Rex turned 9 that summer. His movements were slower, but his spirit was unchanged. The vet said he was aging well. Healthy joints, clear eyes, heart strong. Unusual for a rescue with his history, she said. But Rex wasn't just a rescue. He was a guardian. He was family. On Rex's 9th adoption anniversary, the Whitakers hosted a backyard gathering. Not a party, exactly, just food, neighbors, stories. The kind of thing they never would have dared before. Mrs. Granger baked her famous rhubarb pie. Melissa brought bones from her new homemade dog treat business, inspired by Rex. Even Brad came, now in college, studying social work. Ava made a short speech. "Rex is more than a dog," she said. "He's the heart of this pack." Caleb smiled at that, because it was true. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Mark built a fire pit in the backyard. Sarah passed out mugs of hot cocoa, and everyone took turns sharing what Rex had taught them. Mrs. Granger said, "That age doesn't dull wisdom. It sharpens it." Melissa said, "That strength can come in silence." Brad said, "That redemption is possible, even for people." Mark, once the most fearful of them all, simply said, "That love changes everything." Finally, it was Caleb's turn. He stood beside Rex, now lying on a soft blanket near the fire, head on his paws, tail sweeping gently through the grass. "I used to think I was a problem to be managed," he said, "that I had to be watched, protected, wrapped in bubble wrap." He knelt beside Rex. But Rex, he didn't protect me from life. He helped me live it. He looked up at the crowd, his voice steady, clear. "I don't think he saved me in that bathtub just because he could. I think he saved me because he knew I wasn't done yet." He looked at Rex, whispered, "Thank you for staying until I figured that out." The applause was quiet. No fanfare, just warmth. The kind that lingers long after the last ember fades. Rex passed away 2 years later, peacefully, in his sleep. He was 13. Caleb found him in the morning, curled in his usual place at the foot of the bed. No fear, just peace, just love. They buried him in the backyard under the old cedar tree where he used to nap in the summers. Ava painted a wooden plaque. "Rex, the heart that watched over ours." But that wasn't the end, because a year after that, Caleb started a nonprofit, the Rex Foundation, matching support dogs with chronically ill teens. Sarah ran the community outreach. Ava designed the logo. Mark built training stations at the shelter. They called it Joy with Teeth. And Caleb? He wrote, and he walked, and he healed. Because love like Rex's doesn't disappear. It multiplies. In every life, there are moments that divide us into before and after. For the Whitakers, that moment was a knock at the bathroom door, followed by a dog who chose love over fear. Rex wasn't just a pet. He was a healer, a protector, a silent reminder that strength doesn't need to roar. That sometimes the greatest guardians walk on 4 legs. His loyalty reshaped a family, a neighborhood, and a boy's future. Not through grand speeches, but through presence, through heart. Has a dog ever changed your life? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the Heart Force channel. Every like, comment, and share helps us bring more stories like Rex's to the world.